It was about a year and a half ago that I'd explored the world of Monster Hunter Online when it was only in closed beta. Now, that beta has opened up to everyone and the game has progressed quite a bit. So let's take a look at where it stands and what it means for the Monster Hunter franchise. Now, keep in mind that while this is an open beta, anything is subject to change. Also be aware that the entirety of this game is in Chinese, and while I did my best to uncover everything I could, there's a good chance I missed something or not fully grasped the concept of one thing or another. Immediately upon starting up the beta, you're shown a rather intense and impressive cinematic. It's the kind of thing that reminds you of why you're a fan of the Monster Hunter series. You're shown all the epic armor and weapons, but you're reminded that it doesn't mean squat unless you've got friends to help you out, because some of those baddies are truly terrifying. And that's where I want to start things, the core gameplay. It's what we all really care about anyway. Does this game feel like Monster Hunter? And in short, yeah, hell yeah it does. The biggest fix they made since last year was adding a dedicated matchmaking service to every co-opable hunt. You post a quest you want to complete and it'll match you automatically with others who are trying to tackle the same thing in your server. And honestly, this is huge. No longer should you need to struggle trying to find someone to help you in getting that last wing for your armor set just because there are hundreds of others out there trying to do the same thing and they're being brought to you on a silver platter. The game even gives you an approximate time that it'll take to find those players, and in the meantime, you can set up your inventory, talk to AI, and even move around your gear. Yes, they have finally done it. Unlike literally every other Monster Hunter game out there, up to this point, you can now change gear on the fly without needing to return to a house. Perhaps that's due to the low real estate in the new areas, or the fact that your box is run by some ninja nomad who may or may not be stealing from you. But regardless, your gear is always available to you on your person. It's never stored in a box, no matter where you're at in the town, so you can always change things whenever you want. Hunts, true to the series, will be very familiar. Honestly, not much has changed when you embark out into the real world, and that's a great thing. You'll need to complete an objective, usually kill something, gather some materials along the way. The gathering gloves have been removed since the closed beta, thank God, and everything is pretty easy to find thanks to large question marks that appear over your characters' heads. Monsters that are often tougher than you're ready for will appear in earlier hunts, giving you the feeling of a truly dangerous world. The new maps are familiar yet inviting and fit very well into the series, though some of them feel a little repetitive and lackluster. You'll be able to choose from a variety of weapons at this stage, though not all the weapons from past games are in there right now. This includes dual swords, longsword, hammer, hunting horn, bow, bowgun, greatsword, and sword and shield. However, this completely leaves out lance and gun lance, two of the long-time returning weapons. Most Monster Hunter games have a fairly steep learning curve, but that's where Monster Hunter Online mixes it up a little bit. The first few hours you'll put into the game are really nothing but tutorials, and for new players, they're set up actually very well. They really ease you into the game, carefully walking through most of the features of the title. However, they kind of took this and ran with it. As well, after you're well accustomed to the game, you'll still be running around doing tutorial-like quests. In fact, that's one of the main variations in Monster Hunter Online. Every past game has had a list of quests to undertake, some of them being key quests needed to unlock the next tier. However, in Monster Hunter Online, you're forced to run a number of story or tutorial quests along the way, and you unlock semi-optional hunts more familiar to the series. And here's where Monster Hunter Online begins to embark on its dramatic spiral out of control. Every quest you undertake requires a set number of tickets to be able to go on. You can unlock more tickets by completing your stereotypical MMO missions, talk to this person, do this quest, talk to this person, get rewards. That means, however, that any quest you want to go on, say to create an armor set, will use up tickets and you won't be able to get those back. For fans of the series, you can see how this gets out of control pretty quickly, but for those who aren't, let me lay it out for you pretty simply. Any armor set you hope to make will take about 5 to 30 of a specific monster part. You get about 0 to 5 of that specific part per quest. That means that worst case scenario, you'll probably need to run a specific quest about 6 times to make a full armor set. Oftentimes it's more than this, as you just can't get that one last rare breakable part. So per day, you use up about 6 tickets just to make an armor set, of which you only get about 10 for the entire 24-hour period. Now, you could just do a story mission to get that ticket back. It's that the story mission you just started used up a ticket, and the one you got back just brings you back to where you were at. Enter microtransactions. Now, on top of those tickets, there's also an XP cap every 24 hours. Your first few days, this will be a huge deal as I hit the XP cap within about 2 hours. But obviously, as your levels increase in requirements, this will theoretically cease to be an issue. Nonetheless, it's very frustrating when you need to be level 11 to progress in the story and unlock new quests, and you're stuck at level 10 and 7/8 for the next 22 hours. Honestly, the way the quest is set up, it almost feels like an afterthought. The main hunting quests, traditional to the franchise with no AI or story-driven qualities, are few and far between when unlocking, but perhaps that's because the town equivalent is much richer. Unlike previous installments in the series, there are a lot of other achievements and goals to focus on. Eventually, you will unlock your farm, which of course has its own currency, as it always had, It aids you in the same way, providing materials upon upgrading, although it does use your own pickaxe and bug nets, which honestly isn't a big deal and really makes a lot of sense. Although the timer on how much you can gather is lengthened slightly from before in previous installments, where a single quest would renew your resources. You can speed up this waiting with microtransactions, of course, but honestly, it's really not worth it unless you're at the highest tier. Probably the biggest thing you can pay attention to outside of quests is upgrading your gear, as it always has been. Like we've all come to know and love in Monster Hunter titles, your gear can be upgraded to be stronger and of course more badass looking. And while this relies on the mercy of the ticket system and your own patience, it's always rewarding to finally get that new piece made and see it in action. Since the closed beta, which was the last time I played, they brought the elements into play as well as skills, neatly laid out and easy to follow. One of the things I felt cheated by last time was the similarity in creation materials for weapons and armor. They all used to use the same monster parts and the same number of those monster parts to create everything. This has been mostly rectified, as armor now fits with what you would expect. A chest piece will take more scales to create than a helmet typically. However, the weapons still seem to follow this pattern as we've previously seen, and that's sort of distracting and a little disheartening. Speaking of weapons, this is one of the largest changes from other Monster Hunter installments, and while not new, it still feels a little removed from the flow of things. While you have access to use any weapon you'd like whenever you want, so long as you have one, you still need to earn different movesets for the weapons. By unlocking special currency, you can unlock different attacks and combo sets with each weapon as you progress. These, however, are slightly rare, so it may take a while to truly master each weapon class, removing some of the flexibility and understanding and feeling comfortable using each of the different weapons. There are plenty of other vendors, odds and ends in the town, and honestly, I want to explore more, but due to the language barrier, I can't place exactly what most of them do. Or perhaps I just haven't made it far enough. Regardless, they don't seem to be pivotal to the game, and a few of those seem to be paired with microtransactions to help you move things along a little quicker. Some of these changes and grinds make the town feel more like a traditional MMO, running you through hoops just to make any progress feel like you've conquered the world. I often regretted running back to town for fear of feeling held back. I had to stop and remind myself that I am playing this for the core gameplay, hunting monsters. And how does it fare in Monster Hunter Online? Well, honestly, it feels pretty damn great. Motions are fluid in monsters, while starting can be pretty innocent, grow to be quite the challenge we've loved. Attack values are listed, while this is a little non-traditional, but it helps those new to the series get verification that their new weapons are truly more beastly than the last. The worst part was at the end of every quest, when I had the constant reminder of how many quests I could undertake before I was forced out until the next day. And this is where the game pangs you. In a game where grinding is not only encouraged but completely necessary, limiting your playtime is excruciating. In the end, it felt like Tencent did their best to make an upgraded form of Monster Hunter, but somewhere along the way it just got lost. If there was one thing that Tencent has done right, it's create the Monster Hunter game we've always visually wanted. There really isn't much to say. The environments are gorgeous, lighting effects that evoke the feeling of adventure, weapons and armor are textured gloriously to give the true immersion of menace, and monsters are terrifyingly well characterized. The weapon and element effects are a little out of place, appearing more cartoonish than realistic, but the monster's attacks will combat this as to distract you almost completely. The town is inviting and lively, with broad and vivid colors popping from all the corners, and on top of it all, the game is well optimized enough to handle this on many of the different settings. Tencent has done a fantastic job with capturing the sounds and music in the world of Monster Hunter. While they've created a few new pieces to match the new monsters in town, they've primarily brought back classic tunes or renditions of those that have perfectly captured the atmosphere and life of a hunter. While some of these environments could use a bit more background engagement, the front and center roars, snaps, gnashes, and clangs are all right there, making every move feel powerful and dangerous. The voice acting is pretty typical for an MMO, generic mumblings unique to each character, but doesn't pull away too much from what you're doing, as more often than not, you're mashing just to get to your next objective anyway. What this game really comes down to is, does it feel and play like a Monster Hunter? And that is a complicated and weighted question, but one I will simply answer with yes, kind of, not really, no. And here is why. When you first start, it feels like everything you could ever wanted in a new Monster Hunter game. Upgraded graphics, accelerated matchmaking, engaging quests, and a soundtrack to boot. But as you continue to wrap up your first few hours, this begins to fade. You're stocked on tickets, you're starting to learn the lay of the land and understand the limitations of your primary weapon movesets, and may have even conquered a few beasties. But then they slap you with an XP cap. No worries, hop on the next day with high hopes, only to fight a long queue to get into your server, and then you start noticing things. Sign up for VIP to get quicker access, a notification message pops up. You outlast it and hop on again, upgrade your armor set and get a badass new weapon, and you're off, only suddenly you're out of tickets and you need to come back tomorrow. You drudge through the queue again, slowly working your way through the story quests, and only now it's a little thinner spread. The waiting times are longer, and you spend more time carefully planning your entire session than you would just jumping in and helping a friend with a quest. At the end of your session, you're left with a spiteful sourness that is a half-completed armor set, almost all the pieces you need to complete a new weapon, and you start to wonder how much money you would need to put into this game to feel good about your character at the end of the day. And that's just not right. While the game offers a classic Monster Hunter feel and boasts a new coat of paint, it seems to strike where it hurts when you really want to get into it. While the limitations on how much you can progress in a day can seriously lengthen the game's value, it also is very contradictory to Monster Hunter's philosophy of teamwork and grinding. Making progress feels great and shows its worth in the epic hunts. It doesn't have the content right now to back it up. Only a small number of endgame weapons and armors are available at this time compared to past games, so even with the staggered progression system, it won't take long to unlock everything, if you're dedicated. Short burst players will benefit from this playstyle, but those who want to grind all day on a weekend will have to do some serious planning and maybe even fork up some dough to accomplish their goals. Although this is a free-to-play game and it's completely understandable that we should show our financial support for the developers, I feel the structure begins to take advantage of players just a bit too much. At the end of the day, I just had to ask myself, is playing this really worth the roller coaster of enjoyment as it's become? You can get so involved in the enjoyable gameplay, only to be quickly shut down in your progression, leaving a very tainted taste in your mouth at the end of every session. For casual gamers, I think this could last them a while, but for the more hardcore Monster Hunter fans, you may not even want to get started unless your wallet is as dedicated as you are, and even then there's no guarantee you won't end up a little salty.